It's Monday, the 12th of July, 2016. I am Robin Yellow, and this is Techtasm, episode 23, Vladimir Pokemon. And with me again, because nobody else can make up show titles like it, is Sir James Woodhall.
Hello, I think it's a gift. I'm going to call it a gift.
A lot of people have said that you're gifted. Oh no, special. That's it, special.
I think I prefer gifted.
Well, this week, the special James and I will be looking at Putin poning Hyperloop One. Pokemon goes everywhere except the UK, and Dyson gets to sell more of their Brexit stuff. And we'll be judging these stories and a few more to tell you if they are a Techtasm, which is a blend of tech for technology and tasm for phantasm, something that exists only in a person's mind. So without further intro, it's on with the show. Vladimir Putin has promised Russian state backing for Hyperloop, reports Fortune this week from David Z. Morris. Who's commenting on a Bloomberg article that's reporting that Putin has pledged support for the ultra-high speed transportation concept outlined by Tesla founder Elon Musk. Now, this pledge came in a meeting with Hyperloop One's co-founder, Shervin Peshawar, and was confirmed by Bloomberg and a Putin spokesperson. Now, Hyperloop One already has a compact with Russian Transportation Ministry to study building a route between the Russian port in Zarubino and Jilin province in China. Were you aware of the different this company Hyperloop One, James?
I was aware of Hyperloop One, and aren't these the guys that have also got? Is it the Finland to Sweden one as well? There you go, Helsinki and Stockholm. So I was aware of them because of that. I didn't know about the Zarubino and Jilin one, but I mean, hey, maybe I'm going to be cynical here, but maybe the Americans might all of a sudden announce, that they're backing it between DC and New York or something. I don't know.
Well, apparently the other company, because there are two, which is Hyperloop Transportation Technologies, are looking at, they've got some kind of preliminary deal with the Slovakian government, as well as with the Key Valley development in California. So there is, potentially a space race to build the first Hyperloop. Wouldn't it be ironic, though, if the Russians and the Chinese were to build one first with an American idea?
Yeah, but the thing is, competition is good. The Americans, like we British, are sometimes very, very slow at getting anything done. And I'm guessing because of the regulation differences and whatever else, if the government in China or Russia decides to do something, they're going to do it. And that's really interesting. What I love about the Hyperloop is it's effectively open source technology. Elon Musk, promoted it initially and now has taken a step back and said, here you go, world, here's some ideas. Let's see what you do with them. That's brilliant.
Well, it's interesting that all the challenges are in the execution, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Because fundamentally, it's a cheap idea as well. It's a vacuum tube.
Yes.
Down which you propel with linear motors. I mean, nothing really clever. You've got this transportation system that is potentially very difficult to build. And, I know $1 billion isn't $1 billion anymore. It ain't what it used to be. But for example, the whole Helsinki to Stockholm route, they've estimated would cost $21 billion. Sounds like a moonshot to me.
Well, they did say, I was reading about the Helsinki and Stockholm one earlier today when this story popped up in my feed, which is it will generate $1 billion a year in profit. So
how the heck does it do that?
I don't know. Well, hey, look, someone's done the numbers. I mean, they've done a feasibility study, as it said. So they know that they can pay it back in, so many years and whatever else. And that's brilliant. Hey, I mean, that's a pretty decent investment. If they can do that.
Well, of course, the advantage of Hyperloop, of course, is that it can be done on the ground. It can potentially be safer than air transportation, certainly politically safer, if not safer per mile, because air transportation, of course, is very safe. But that potential of having, effectively a 700 mile an hour train really opens things up. And if you look at the kind of times they're talking about for covering, well, just work it out, 700 miles an hour in 2 hours gets you halfway across Europe, or mostly across Europe, actually, if you could ever build one.
I mean, they said that a flight from Helsinki to what is it? I'm looking at the numbers. Okay, Helsinki to Stockholm is 28 minutes, but today it takes 3.5 hours by plane.
By plane?
By plane.
That can't be right, can it?
That doesn't.
Well, it could be that's including all the necessary time to check in, rank up, get through security board, take off. It's all the stuff either end. When back in the day, I was working on a project in Manchester from my base in London, and on a Monday morning when we went up there for this project, it was a toss of the coin as to whether you go by train or whether you go by plane. They both took about the same time, and I'm going to say 2.5 hours, something like that, maybe 3 hours, door to door.
But the actual flight is a tiny part of that. I mean,
yeah, correct. It was only 30, 40 minutes of the actual time, and therefore it's better to go by train because you had longer on the train, a couple of hours, hour and 3/4 on the train, but it was like continuous, sitting in the same place so that you could work. And I guess the same principle applies here, does it?
Yeah, no, I think it's really, really fascinating. And if all these other countries are getting involved with it, it's going to happen sooner than it would have done, because when it was first pitched by Elon Musk, it was going to be LA to San Francisco. And that was, it was a good couple of years before. 2013 is when it was first announced. So we're 3 years along now, and it's only in the last year when all these other companies have just kind of appeared and borrowing the technology that it's doing something. So brilliant. Bring it on. This is fantastic. Putin, good on you.
He certainly, what he's done is he's got a very keen eye for the political, which will, of course, entrench his power base. And doing something grand like this, a grand project, could potentially unite a nation. And if it involves beating the Americans, then, harking back to the days of the Cold War, that's a motivator. And of course, if that then motivates Americans or Europeans or Chinese or whoever to try to beat them to it themselves, well, I think, James, you'd agree with me, and I want to see one of these things. I want to see people traveling. I want to see if it works.
Well, I think the ironic thing is it's beating the Americans with their own technology.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Bring it on. No Techtasm here, I think. This looks like it's going to... given the number of, if you've got the president of a major world power saying that they back it at a state level, I think it's going to happen.
So moving on, the second half of our title, Vladimir Pokemon, is good old Nintendo. Now, we all know Nintendo as a great console maker from the 90s. It faded a little bit recently with the Wii U, as we discussed in the previous episode, but they've all of a sudden, pretty much overnight, they've become the #1 app in the Apple App Store in the US with Pokemon Go. Have you heard of this?
I've heard of it because it's such a phenomenon. It came out last Wednesday, and it's had so many downloads. It's now outstripping Twitter in terms of daily users.
I heard today in the office that it has more users than Tinder.
Yes. That's right. More users than Tinder, more users than Twitter. And that is huge. The question I have is it just a flash in the pan? Because one of the things I love about Nintendo, James, is the way that they blend the characters that they've built up over 30 years into their games so that you back the character. It's all about the characters. And I think actually the predominant users of this Pokemon Go application are people probably in their 20s, even 30s, that kind of grew up with Pokemon.
Yes.
And know what it is, and they've got that kind of initial association. Because as far as I can see, it's not much different to the previous game from this game studio, which was called Ingress, wasn't it?
I'm not too familiar with that particular.
Yeah, it's the Google game studio, whose name I can't quite remember if it's in this article.
Niantic.
That's it, Niantic, in Rolling Stone. And they created a game called Ingress, which was location-based. And the idea was that you went out in your Android phone and you went to certain locations on the map, and aliens would appear, and then you would have a battle with them. But it was based in the real world.
Okay, well, I mean, it sounds like the same thing then. But the thing is, Nintendo, being a company that's been struggling for a while, all of a sudden, their stock price has jumped 20%. And that is absolutely that doesn't happen. Very rarely it happens going the other way, but going up that much, that's brilliant. And
Isn't this their first move into Android gaming or iOS gaming?
It's their second. They announced a year and a half ago, I think it was, they were going to go into smartphone gaming because the consoles are dying. They did do a game, I think called Miiverse or something, all around the idea of having your own character in a little universe, but I think it was just a taster. I think this is their first proper game on a smartphone.
Well, just to explain how it works to the listeners, there are Pokestops, where are places that you go and you can pick up Pokemons. I mean, you tap the screen and you get a Pokemon, and then there's some other place where you go and you can have battles.
We're clearly the experts, yeah.
I know, we're reading this as we go. But I did hear, actually, interesting that somebody described it as a kind of a mixture of a fruit machine and a card collecting. You collect monsters of a certain type. And it's also got that fruit machine. You tap the screen, you get a reward. You tap it, you get stars. You tap it, you get credit. Which I thought was quite interesting, tapping into the limbic system and two parts of the brain, which are, if they're co-stimulated, create an addiction. The other comedy description I heard was that some of these Pokemon players who'd got Pokemon Go were suffering leg injuries because they'd actually stumbled into exercise while using this app.
Nonsense. They should sit down and calm down.
Well, this is it. You can't sit down. I suppose you could do it on a bike, couldn't you?
You could. Interestingly enough, but then, of course, on a bike, you're definitely doing exercise. I was reading this kind of emotion piece, if you will, where this woman who has depression, she uses it to get out of bed in the day because she wants to, you got to catch them all, and I guess it's having some really pleasant unintended consequences, which is brilliant. It's nice to see.
Well, it was always, remember that when Wii first came out, the idea of standing up to play a video game, everybody was proclaiming this as the future of video games, and this was a really wonderful thing. And then that Fit board or whatever it is, this Bluetooth device that connected to the Wii, where you stood on it and did surfing and jigging around. Yeah. Well, see what happened to that.
Well, no, that did really well. That was huge. The Wii outsold the PS3 and the Xbox One combined many times over. The Wii was fantastic. The problem is they didn't follow it up very well.
Are we seeing a Techtasm in this story?
No, this is great. This is brilliant. I mean, look, whether it's a fad or not, I don't know. It's hard. It's too early to tell them.
I think it's a fad, James.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's a fad because actually listening again today to a range of podcasts and reading some materials, some articles on the topic, it looks like the game itself doesn't have much depth. So there certainly is the character association. There certainly is the moving around, walking the dog, twice as much association. But ultimately, I think it will fall flat like the Wii U itself because it just didn't have the titles. And I think this game is quite shallow. I think it's a classic Techtasm. I think the Nintendo stock price went up. If you wanted a stock tip, short Nintendo, because I think they're going down again. Don't quote me. I am not in any way an investment advisor, so do not take any advice I give you. So
basically, don't listen to Robin, I think is the
don't listen
phrase.
To me, but I'm calling this one Techtasm anyway.
Which is great when you do a podcast, clearly. Okay, well, let's move on really quickly. We've spoken about the whole Google Oracle suing thing, and in my favourite website, that may or may not be Ars Technica, who knows, it seems that Google are kind of going back again. Google won, obviously, and they are filing a motion for sanctions against the law firm that represented Oracle. And it's all it's all very, very strange. And
What is the basis of the sanctions that they're filing against this?
it's all about how Oracle's attorneys revealed sensitive financial arrangements, confidential information that shouldn't, that shouldn't have come out and whatever. Some of it was due to, it turns out, Google pays Apple $1 billion, Dr. Evil there in the corner, to prominently display Google as the default search engine in the Safari browser on the device.
Yeah, presumably based on the fact that they cost them $1 billion and they make $3 billion.
Yeah, I guess so. But
see, the thing about that is, while it is confidential information, I'm sure they all signed disclose, NDAs so that they wouldn't be revealed. The market probably knew this was going on. They knew if they were making $3 billion out of Apple, they'd be paying $1 billion for it, because that's the way Apple works. Apple's entire business model is give me a third or give me 30%.
Yeah. Yeah. No one's surprised. And in fact, I think in the same week, I read yesterday how Firefox gets a couple of $100 million from Google for the same thing. The default browser on Firefox is Google, and hey, the default search engine. And, hey, that's no coincidence. So
now that's interesting, because I read somewhere else today that Firefox have, and I think this may be just in the US, some kind of deal with Yahoo, whereas they don't use Yahoo's search engine. But if
they used to use Google and they moved to Yahoo. So that's it. They now use Yahoo, and Yahoo pay them more than Google did.
Right.
So that was the story. So, but yes, it makes perfect sense, right? And the reason Yahoo did it is because they need to find some way of still being relevant.
Yeah, correct. So obviously, there are deals to be done. This is how business gets done.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you establish a platform, people should pay to get shelf space there.
But the idea of Google going back to Oracle's attorneys and going, hey, we're going to sue you again, it seems a little bit litigious and silly.
It's a bit petty, isn't it?
Exactly. Can't they just, But the thing is, the information's out there now. What are they going to do?
I thought Google were bigger than this, James. I must admit, I'm a bit disappointed about it. I don't think it's a Techtasm, though, because in a way they've been subject to petty legal action from Oracle for years and years now, and one little backswipe at them maybe will perhaps discourage them from doing it again.
Yeah, this is not against Oracle, though. This is against Oracle's attorneys.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's keeping it in. It's kind of keeping the story in the zeitgeist. Really, they knew that there'd be an intended, perhaps PR consequence of doing this, just to remind everybody how nasty Oracle had been. But I think it sullies them in a very small way, and actually, I don't think it's very big of them. So
I watched a really good documentary called "Terms and Conditions May Apply," which is on Netflix. Other streaming services are available. And
we have no duty whatsoever to be unbiased, but thank you for saying that.
Anytime. And what was really interesting about the documentary, it was about how people just skip over those and say, I accept terms and conditions, I accept terms and conditions. And it discussed how Google's privacy policy, before 9/11 was everything's anonymous, we don't need your data, we're all friendly, everything, blah, blah, blah. And then they updated it to the opposite a few months after 9/11. And Google keeps a history of all of its privacy policies, except for that first one. And people found it, of course, through the Wayback Machine, archive.org and so forth. But when Google's motto of, do no evil and whatever, I don't believe it.
Well, I think if you're a fanboy, you forgive them the occasional transgression. If you are anti-Google, you believe they are evil anyway, and they're up to it, regardless of whether you've heard about it.
They're a public company. Their duty is, this is a legal requirement. Their legal duty is first and foremost to their shareholders.
Correct.
So you can be all good and whatever, all you want, but at the end of the day, if the shareholders say make money, then you're going to make money. That's just kind of it, really.
Yeah, they can swap the board out if they do not fulfill their obligation to the shareholders with a shareholder revolt. And of course, the stocks can be traded up and down. It has a market value. Mm-hmm. But largely, they're left to do their own thing. I mean, there may be a fiduciary responsibility, or whatever they call it, to actually behave in a certain way that delivers profit for the shareholders. But really, they can do whatever they like. And I think, here is a case where actually perhaps the negative PR value of what they've done here, may actually have cost them a few quid.
Well, let's see. But moving on to a equally less positive story about Google, 10 million Android phones now are infected by some kind of malware virus thing called Shadon Hummingbird that basically serves you adverts that you didn't intend to watch. And basically, when you're just using your phone, you're just going to start to see adverts randomly from nowhere.
Oh, it's not a keylogger then?
Well, that's the thing, though. Because it's a routing app, I guess the concern is it could be used for absolutely anything. I mean, the monetization for the hackers is basically to serve you adverts and whatever. But
so presumably the phones that are liable to this are AOSP phones who allow sideloading of APKs.
No, I think what they're saying is there's a vulnerability that what it says is there's a vulnerability in an older version of Android that allows you to root through an app, and what they're saying is it's kind of drive-by download. They are saying that if you view certain porn sites, and I quote here, booby-trapped porn sites, every pun intended, then basically it's a drive-by download, and your phone can be rooted.
So presumably this is vulnerabilities in older versions. What versions?
Well, actually, 40% of them are Jelly Beans, so yes, but one of them, 1%, is Marshmallow.
Interesting.
So of 10 million devices, 100,000 of them with this exploit are running Marshmallow.
Yes.
So that's a bit rubbish.
That is interesting because if you look at Marshmallow owning Nexus devices, which I've done for quite a long time now, Nexus devices, of course, not only have the latest version of the OS, but they also get the monthly security patch as well, which comes through as a kind of app update direct from Google. However, phones which are not Nexus, every other phone gets their updates much more slowly.
Yeah, and this goes back to an age-old story that we've repeated many times, which is, do Google need to I wouldn't say take back control, they never have control in the first place. Do Google need to take control over the operating systems? Because, 10 million phones in the grand scheme of things is a small percentage of mobile phones in the wild, right?
Yes.
But that's 10 million people who have got a virus on their personal device that they certainly didn't ask for. I mean, that isn't right. That's.
So what is the vulnerability then? I don't understand. If Marshmallow's got this infection, how can you? How did the vulnerability last into Marshmallow? That can't be a current version.
It doesn't say. But the site that figured it out, Checkpoint Research, they got the numbers and they've got a little graph that says where the infections come from.
Third-party app stores. So I think generally, if you are on the Google Play Store and you do not have the developer option set to allow you to install, download, sideload apps, you're going to be fairly safe.
No, I disagree. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think, it's possible through shellcode and whatever. Remember, there was a vulnerability a couple of months ago with the stage fright bug, where if you looked at a certain image, it could have a code embedded in it, and therefore take control of the code. All you need is a few lines of shellcode to invoke a URL to download something else. Yeah. You can do that in 2 or 3 lines of code, right?
But the Google Play Store will have threat detection on all the apps in the Play Store to look for apps.
No. What they're saying is, through your web browser, there's a download of something. No, if I go back to the stage fright bug, that had nothing to do with downloading an app.
No.
That was in the web browser viewing an image.
Yes.
So
That's
I
not
think,
good.
Android users, you're not safe. Switch over to iPhones.
No, don't listen to him, Android users. Stay where you are. You're perfectly safe. We're only talking about a tiny number of users here in the grand scheme of things.
It's only
That's not
10
to say
million
this,
people. You're right.
It's only 10 million out of the billions, and the vast majority are in China, India, Philippines, Indonesia, Turkey, Brazil, Mexico. You're getting down into the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands after that.
Well, 286,000 are in the US.
Yeah, but there's still 300 and odd million of them. I mean, it's still a tiny... The question is, will they grow over time? So is this a Techtasm or not? I don't think it is a Techtasm.
Okay, well, no, it's not. This is a problem.
Yeah.
But I think Google needs to take more control over Android. But
I think that's the solution, isn't it, to lock down the whole environment? Well, we had a story, was it last week, or did we spike it, about Google making the Pixel phone? Totally Google design, top to bottom hardware and software.
We did talk about that.
Good.
We're good. I'm glad you remember our episodes. Brilliant.
I remember them clearly.
All right, go on. Let's move on.
Well, Dyson have opened their first UK store on Oxford Street. So shoppers can test out its new products, including vacuum cleaners, fans, and hairdryers. The store is called, they've got a hairdryer, supersonic hairdryer, don't you know? Now, the store is called Dyson Demo and is opposite Selfridges on Oxford Street in London. Now, they've launched actually a few products this year, James. Now, you said you hadn't heard of the hairdryer.
Now that I think about it, I think we may have even spoken about it.
It's a £300 hairdryer, which is just ridiculous. But it's got a hole down the middle, a bit like the fan, the air purifying fan. It doesn't appear to actually have a fan in it. It's actually just, I don't know quite how it works, but it's £300. I wouldn't buy one. We may have laughed at it in a previous episode. They've also got this air purifying fan, which is, I don't know if you've seen one of those, James. They're kind of floor standing or desk standing, and they just appear to be
at home. The wife and I have got the one previous generation. It's very nice. I don't know. It's a fan.
Is it quiet?
No.
No. Brilliant.
But then perhaps as part of the purify, we got ours 2.5 years ago, so maybe the purifying one is quite whatever. Hey, look, it's interesting. I have to say I'm in London on Thursday for various super important high flying executive meetings, and when I'm not doing that, I may go and visit this store.
Great, that'd be fantastic. Actually, a field trip.
A field trip, absolutely.
That would be awesome. Yeah, go and check it out. One of the things that you can look at, actually, is something I'm not 100% sure whether we can buy it in the UK yet. I think it may be only Japan, is the Dyson 360 iRobot vacuum cleaner. So they've got a robot vac. It costs £800, $1,000 and reducing. And it's got a camera on top, a 360 degrees camera, which allows it to see where it's going, what its obstacles it's got to maneuver. And, presumably, again, it's got some Uber suction system. That was always the Dyson proposition.
Oh, the Hoovers are good. And in fact, we paid £30 for a little Hoover robot thing that it's got one of those sensors where when it hits the wall, it just turns around. So it's not very precise at all. So
does it work?
800, does it work? It's hard to tell because you get bored watching it, you leave it alone, and then it turns itself off. So maybe.
I don't know. This one is quite sophisticated. It recharges itself.
Well, you'd hope so for £800.
Well, for £800, I'd expect a ride-on bloody vacuum cleaner, so I can sit down or at least put a pet on the top for a little ride. Well, looks like Dyson are on the up, but it looks like another well-known household brand is on its way down. Blackberry have killed its classic QWERTY phone. Now,
is anybody mourning this?
Well, I don't know. Did you ever have one of these Blackberry phones?
No, I didn't. My younger sister did, though, which I never really understood because to me, Blackberries were a business tool. Yeah. And remember, there was a period of time, maybe 2 or 3 years, where because of BBM, it really captured the teenage market.
Yes, BlackBerry Messenger. It was the most popular phone at schools, wasn't it? Because everybody was texting or messaging each other. In those days, of course, it was kind of pre-WhatsApp and I think WhatsApp really superseded BBM, didn't it? And with WhatsApp, people moved over to iPhone and Android. Well, the BlackBerry Classic is, of course, that model that used the QWERTY keyboard. It was very popular before touchscreen smartphones. And reading here from CNN Money, Ralph Pinney, the chief operating officer and general manager, wrote in a blog that the Classic was an incredible workhorse device for customers exceeding all expectations, which is nice. Slightly disingenuous, given that they're killing it. But how long has it been? I mean, it's 20 years it's been around now. 20 years it's been around.
The form factor hasn't changed. I mean, it's iconic, isn't it? The BlackBerry design with the keyboard and the slightly kind of squarish screen. It's will it be missed? I don't know. It's a bit like saying, will Woolworths be missed?
Phone, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I mean, President Obama used to live on it, didn't he, at the beginning of his presidency? I think he's got some other phone. He's got an iPhone now or something else.
No, he's got Raytheon make a special phone that's NSA approved.
What, Android?
No, I don't think so.
Must be. Really?
I can't remember. It's a super phone, as you can imagine. It's like $20,000 a handset or something.
Well, of course, there are a couple of Android handsets, aren't there? Specifically, the Black Phone is one of them, I think, which serve that market. And I think,
we've been doing a lot of work with Samsung on their Samsung
Knox, yes,
platform, which is really. Hey, look, we're getting off topic. BlackBerry. Hey, look, it's like I don't know. It's like Woolworths, Thanks.
We enjoyed your pick and mix sweets.
Yeah.
Now naff off.
But what's going to happen to BlackBerry, though?
Well, they make Android phones, don't they? Like everybody else, they make slab phones, smartphones, like everyone else.
But I don't think they're selling particularly well. I mean, they did announce a few months ago that they would move out of the hardware space if the Android phones didn't sell. So I guess my prediction is they're going to move out the hardware space because the Android phones are not going to sell very well.
It's the inevitable demise of a brand. While a brand still has value, it'll be licensed to some kind of Chinese phone maker who will make Android phones with BlackBerry written on the back, which will appeal to a certain type of gentleman of a certain age.
Unfortunately, it's the same story in a lot of cases, though. You mentioned Nokia. If Nokia didn't innovate when the iPhone and Android came out, that's what happened to them. BlackBerry exactly the same. There's a lot of companies that missed the wave and just didn't bother. And BlackBerry for a very long time were very snobbish of the iPhone, saying everyone still wants a keyboard. Well, clearly not.
Well, that's it for this week. You can find us at facebook.com/Techtasm. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or FeedBurner, and contact us at feedback@techtasm.com. And remember, if you want to give us stars, it's always helpful. We record every Tuesday at 2100 BST GMT, so watch out for next week's episode. This is me, Sir Robin Yellow.
And me, James Woodall.
Asking the question, is it real, or is it just a Techtasm?